Hey everyone, welcome back and welcome to my indoor garden. Today I wanted to share with you houseplants. I wanted to talk with you about the houseplant journey that I have been on over the last year or so. I am a new plant mom. Last year I kind of went down this path of I want to learn a new skill. I want to read more, and reading and buying houseplants, they kind of collided and created this new love for me. There's just something about bringing nature into your home that just makes your space feel so much more alive, like literally. And so I wanted to share with you plants that I have purchased and I've been able to keep alive for over a year. I am not versed or well schooled on how to keep houseplants alive, and so I'm going to share with you how I learned about houseplants, but I also want to encourage those of you who are kind of on the fence about, I don't know, I don't think I can keep it alive, I have a black thumb, I don't have a green thumb, that you can. And it's very simple, and just the life that a houseplant brings, the literal green that it brings to a space. I just carried all my plants that I have dispersed throughout the home up here, and now I kid you not, I walk downstairs and I'm like, it's like brown in here. It's like dull and lifeless. Literally, I sucked the life out of my downstairs. So I'm going to delve into each plant that I have purchased, a few tips and tricks about the plant, where I keep it, how I've kept it alive, and I'm also going to tell you that every single one of these plants moved with me in a vehicle. And not just for a week or a day, I moved them for a month. Okay, they didn't sit in my car for a month, but they went through a lot of trauma. They've seen like 4 different motels, the front seat of my husband's car for 3 days. They have gone through some trauma and they're still kicking it. I started my journey with collecting houseplants by finding a few channels on YouTube to kind of educate myself on, okay, what are my options? Where do I put them? Like literally basic things. I am such a practically minded person that I need you to literally tell me step 1, step 2, like not just a rough, I need you to tell me. So the first thing that I did was I bought 2 books. And both of these books I definitely recommend that you read if you're going to start this journey. Very inexpensive books I bought on Amazon. This is the first book that I purchased, How Not to Kill Your Houseplant. Very helpful information. This book I probably learned more about the logistics of plants than the first one, but I recommend them both. The second one is called The New Plant Parent. Develop Your Green Thumb and Care for Your Houseplant Family. Both of these books, highly recommend this as a starting point. So if you go to your local Lowe's or your grocery store or a greenhouse, you're going to see the majority of these plants. A few of these plants are a little bit more, I don't want to say rare, but plants you're going to have to probably order. And I did, yes, I ordered off of Etsy some of these plants. But let's start with what you can find when you go and take yourself to Lowe's or Home Depot. Pothos. That is where I started with my plant journey. Pothos are an easy care houseplant. They are a vining, trailing type of houseplant. They look beautiful hanging, but they also look great displayed on a shelf and just kind of draping down. You'll see a theme here with a lot of my houseplants. There's a certain type of aesthetic that I like. I like how a pothos looks dreamy, it looks whimsical, it looks romantic. It adds a lot of interest to the space. It adds texture, if you will. I just love the look of this particular plant. And so whatever kind of look you want, vibe you want in your house, maybe seek out that style of plant. Pothos do not require a ton of humidity. They don't require, an extreme amount of light. In fact, I wouldn't put them directly in front of a south-facing window. A south-facing window is going to get the harshest sun of the day. It's going to be the most heat. Don't stick them in a dark corner either. So medium to bright indirect light, which means it gets at least 6 hours of sunlight, 6 to 8 hours a day. I have this particular pothos hanging directly in front of this window. Now it is blown up since I got it. It has variegation that will come out in the leaves when it's exposed to the proper amount of sunlight. So if it doesn't get enough sunlight, I say sunlight, but I mean daylight, bright light, then it will lose some of its variegation and the leaves will revert to just being green. Another type of pothos is called the NJoy. This one I did purchase on Etsy, and don't be afraid to do that. Maybe wait until if you're living in a place that still gets freezing temperatures, I'd hold off until some warmer months to do it so it doesn't get frozen or damaged in the mail. But I also wouldn't wait till July or August in the heat of summertime to do it either. So literally probably now. Now or maybe sometime in April, May here. But this is the NJoy, and what sets this one apart from the other one is that it has a lot more white and green on it. Now, Part of the trauma of moving my plants was I lost leaves or length because, you know, we tripped over it or it got crushed or my cat got a hold of a few of these. And another part of it is that if they are not exposed to their perfect light, i.e., you know, motel rooms, the leaves will start to revert and push out more green instead of the really pretty white. So like this newer leaf has some really good variegation on it, but some of the ones that, let's see, didn't get the best light in, say, a motel room, you see how some of the white is turning back to green, which that's fine. You know, this plant has a story. I am not 1,000% on this, so just hear me out. I believe this is the Hawaiian one because it has really big leaves. That or it's just a really old plant because you can see how thick the vine is on this. I've learned that these thicker vines just mean that the plant is a lot older. This plant is awesome. I have it on the top of a bookshelf in my living room and it just keeps putting out length. Now when things get out of control, snip it. That's fine. You can either propagate some of the leaves or just trim her back and that will promote more growth at the top to make it fuller, which I would actually like this one to be fuller, so I'm kind of in the process of trimming off length and letting it shoot more energy to filling out. But this plant is, like I said, I think it's the Hawaiian one, and it's really cool to display on stuff because I love the trailing. It's such a neat looking plant and it adds a lot of cool interest to my bookshelves. Lastly, in the pothos, I have the neon. I love this one so much. I have this one sitting in a windowsill in my utility room. Now, another interesting thing, and this is why I encourage you even more, I have lived in a few different homes with these plants, and I've had to shift where they go around in the house. And some of them are performing better in this house, whereas others are kind of like, meh. So if you notice your plant's not really putting out a lot of growth, perhaps move its location. Maybe it's not getting enough light. Maybe it's root bound and it needs a bigger pot. Maybe the watering needs aren't addressed. And so it's really truly a learning thing. The plant can't like talk to you audibly. However, if you really start to eliminate, okay, just like a baby. Is it crying because it's hungry? Is it crying because it's tired? Is it crying because it needs a bath and it's got a wet, like those types of things, you know, it's kind of common sense. But this is the neon version. It is absolutely gorgeous. I love the color. I mean, you want to talk about adding light to your house? Like, not light, brightness. This is the one. So kind of along the same lines as the pothos are philodendrons. They're pretty hardy of a plant too. They're also a trailing type of plant. They have a heart-shaped leaf, which is so beautiful, so romantic. This is like, once again, kind of the neon version. This particular one I have sitting in my kitchen, right on my windowsill there. I love that I have a windowsill that I can set plants on because plants that need a lot of light, that's a great place to put them. Or, you know, in front of a window, you can elevate your plants up off the ground with plant stands or get creative. I have a couple on antiques that I have collected over the years to kind of get them off the ground. I'm a person that doesn't have a plant room. I actually like to make my plants part of my decor, so I distribute them throughout my entire space. Yes, it makes watering day a little bit annoying. Not really. You know, I look at it as a joy. You know, it's a joy in life. It's a hobby. And so the philodendrons, kind of along the same lines as the pothos, really super easy care. I water mine about once a week, but also you need to water when the plant needs water, not when you want to water the plant. I've learned that. So just kind of check the soil. I check the soil with a chopstick, and also the chopstick helps aerate the soil. If your plant gets off on its watering schedule, the soil can become really compacted because it's like holding on to everything. And then you really need to give it a good soak and you need to aerate the soil to kind of loosen it up again. But this is a beautiful plant, really super easy care. Oh my goodness, this one. Then the regular green. This bad boy, this bad boy is so happy where it's at. It's got new leaves like crazy. And a fun fact about plants, when they put out a new leaf, it comes curled. Isn't that cool? So it starts all curled and then it unfurls into this. This is a philodendron. your classic green heart shape. You know, I have a lot of my pots, or not pots, plants in decorative pots. I have a conversation about that, but maybe we'll just save that for another video if you're interested. But this one is trailing, so I probably will eventually hang this one because it's like literally getting out of control, almost touching my floor. But I love these philodendrons. If you're looking for a real showstopper, this Brasil, I think it's called, I'll put all the names on the screen, but I know that its common name is something Brasil. Look at that. So this is another one of those plants where you need to get it needs to get enough light that it will really bring out the variegation. If it doesn't, or even on some of the older leaves, it'll be less vibrant and will look like this. I have this in my bathroom. For some reason, she wants to put out one really long one. I wish she would put out some more. I'm trying to, you know, get some fullness here, but also at the same time, you know, length is cool. But anyways, this plant is stunning. Another really simple, easy care. This one's in my bathroom, so it gets a little bit more humidity. I don't know that that's definite, like, necessary, because I did not have this in my bathroom in my other house, but I had it in a room where I put the humidifier on. You know, this all really depends where you live. If you live somewhere where it's really dry, and if you want to try some plants that need a little bit more humidity, you're going to probably have to get a humidifier and turn it on. I used to turn it on in the morning for a few hours. But I live in a really humid climate now, and I think that's why these plants are like, yes, living their best life. And this one is especially super happy. So this next one I ordered off of Etsy too. And guys, I'm not an expert. In fact, I have questions about this one that I'm probably going to need to research because I'm like, is that a root or is that a piece of mulch? I'm not sure. But this particular one is so unique. The leaves are velvety. Let me see. I wrote it down. I always forget the names. This is a silver satin pothos. I believe it's called some other things too sometimes. I guess some of these plants, you like order them and they're really similar to something else, but this is the silver satin pothos, and this one hasn't grown as much as I'd like, but I also kept it in an area where it stayed alive, but it didn't thrive. So that's another thing. Your plants, sure, you can keep them alive, but in order for them to thrive, you're going to want to get them in their optimal position within the home and really, you know, pay attention to them. Just like a garden, you need to tend to them because left to their own, you know, they'll survive, maybe, unless it's in a dark house with no windows. But this one has velvety leaves. They're really, really cool looking. I have this one downstairs by my kitchen sink, and she is just, she's so fun. She's getting a little out of control for the sink, but, it's beautiful. This next plant, I honestly think experienced the most trauma between moving, not being in ideal light conditions, and then my cat deciding to chew off a lot of the ends. It's lost a lot of its length, kind of like my hair. I feel like this plant is the representation of what's happened to my hair over the last year. She's looking a little thin and sparse, but you know what? She's still putting out a lot of new leaves. This is called the Philodendron Micans. And these leaves, some of them have like rose gold pink to them. They're really, really beautiful. This is an awful representation of this plant because I've seen people's Micans looking amazing. I'm still trying. I'm thinking maybe I moved it to a different location in the house. I trimmed her back. So you also got to give plants time to acclimate to their new home. Even when you first get them, there's going to be an acclimation period where they went from, say, peak conditions in a greenhouse to your house. Well, obviously you don't live inside a greenhouse, so your humidity levels are going to be changed. The lighting's going to be changed. And so I'm just giving it time. It's still putting out new growth. I fertilized it. I fertilize my plants once a month. You know, you don't want to over fertilize, but you definitely want to give them a good dose of vitamins, especially if you want them to put out new growth. You don't want to fertilize in the winter time because like outside, it's kind of a dormant time. But this one is really pretty, and the leaves also are velvety on this one. I have plants that I purchased that I would not say are beginner friendly plants, If you're interested in knowing maybe what not to purchase as a beginner, let me know and I will make that video, because I've decluttered or rehomed, regifted if you will, plants that just weren't working for me. So I assure you, these are all beginner friendly. I'm going to share this one, even though this is a one-off, because this one I just bought this last week, but why not share it, because it's a plant I have in my house. This is called a crispy wave fern, and every time I look at it, it just reminds me of lettuce. like butter lettuce specifically, but just lettuce in general. Ferns generally require a lot of humidity, and so that's why I wouldn't say this is beginner friendly. However, I have never had this one before, so I'm kind of hoping, because it's not such a fine fern like say the maidenhorn or the asparagus fern, I feel like it might fare better in my house. I do have it in a very brightly lit dining room, so I think it'll do okay. But I just wanted to share it because it is cool. If you ever thought a plant couldn't have black leaves, I mean, I guess I didn't think they could have black leaves. Is this not cool? This is called a ZZ plant. This is a pretty chill plant. I did have to kind of revive it a bit because I accidentally overwatered it, and then that in conjunction with not getting a lot of light creates mold and root rot. So it's like, oh my gosh, I like panicked and like put it into a different pot, got rid of all of its icky soil, and then stuck it really close to a window so it could, like use up all that moisture. But this is a ZZ plant. He's pretty chill. He looks awesome in my living room because it's real. In fact, I've had people come over and be like, is that real? And I'm like, yep. Isn't it cool? Now, when it puts out new shoots, they actually come out green. And then they revert to black. Oh, it's such a neat plant. I'd say it needs about medium light. I mean, I think I got this one a little bit too moist right now, so I'm definitely putting it back in front of a window. But this is a really chill plant. I think it just keeps growing upwards. It can get more full, but I picked this one up at Walmart. I've seen this at Walmart, and I've definitely seen it at Lowe's every time I go there. This plant is called a polka dot plant, and it comes in lots of different variegations. This is the pink and green one. This one doesn't need as much light. I have it in a pretty decently bright location, and it's actually grown quite a bit. Before we moved, I had one of these in a different color, and I gave it away. But it was really happy, kind of in medium light, kind of like if you were out in a forest at the bottom of the trees where it gets filtered light sort of situation. And so this one I got here a couple months ago, and it's already grown quite a bit. But I bought this to match my living room and dining room because the colors match my rug, and I'm real big on, aesthetics and things matching and what have you. But this is a pretty plant to offer a little bit of color if you're not just looking for green. I think there's like a red one that's actually really gorgeous. So this one is called the polka dot plant. Okay, so slightly more maintenance would be an African violet. So mine currently has a ton of blooms on it. I'm thinking my soil needs to be changed though, because I'm noticing it's not wanting to absorb water as well. But an African violet needs a lot of light. So I have this in my bathroom on my windowsill, which I have a west-facing bathroom situation. So ideal lighting would be for most plants, would be eastern-facing, western-facing. Succulents and stuff that requires a lot more heat or can tolerate more heat, I would put on a south-facing window. But an African violet is a little more high maintenance because it needs a lot of light, and it needs to be fertilized. Oh my gosh, I think I fertilize every time I water it. So like every 2 weeks. Well, maybe every other time. I think I fertilize every 2 weeks. But it needs that in order to really put forth the blooms. Once again, I've kept this alive, but it wasn't thriving until now, which you can get African violets in lots of different flower colors. Speaking of succulents, this is also not a great representation. I had bought this from a neighbor in San Antonio. She was kind of propagating her plants, and she had two really tiny little seedling, whatever they want to call it, that she put in dirt. So this is really small. These things can get massive. I'm probably eventually just going to buy another one and then put them together in a pot. But this is called String of Pearls. And I've had these in the fake version. I bought them from IKEA. This one's really gotten long. And it's in the succulent family. So once again, it needs a fair amount of light. They don't like to be too wet because the the beads are where all the water is stored, so you can kind of tell when it needs to be watered. And you don't want it to get too moldy on top. So it's just being mindful, really. I guess some of you might say, well, it's just another thing on my to-do list. That is true. I have that thought too. But then when I look around my house and I see how I have literal life growing in it, I'm like, you know what? It's fine. I love it. So this is really pretty. It adds a lot of interest to a space, and it will get very, very long strings. This is just a really small version. You can buy these on Etsy. Be in the more, you're probably not going to find string of hearts at Lowe's. In fact, I would be shocked if you would see this there. I have two versions in here. The regular version that isn't pink and green are these dark hearts. So this is in the succulent family, and once again, the water is held in the leaves, and this can grow really long trails, but right now I'm currently trying to get the roots to take in the top because I'm looking for more fullness and not just having like 3 or 4 strands that are long. So I'm trying to make mine more full. But this is such a romantic, dreamy, whimsical plant. The new growth comes out and it's like really super tiny, tiny little hearts. I actually think it's pretty easy care. I've heard other people say it's not, but I think it just kind of depends on your definition of easy and what you know, how much care and time you want to put into your plants. And then you'll see my fiddle leaf over here. That is a newer plant to me as well. I just recently purchased this one because, number one, when I came back to YouTube, I don't have a lot of space in my house to film, and if I was going to sit in that chair, you know, the first video I put back, it was just like, it needed some green. There was just a dead cave back there, and it was dark. And so I'm like, I need to get a plant. And so I got this fiddle leaf. I don't have a lot of information about it because I'm very new to it. I do know it grows vertical, and it's kind of like a tree. It's definitely a bigger plant. It doesn't take up a ton of space because, quite honestly, I have it squished in like a 2x2 area here. But it's really fun, big leaves, a different shape to this space. It doesn't fall into that like whimsical category. It's kind of a little bit more tropical. And then the last plant is the elephant ear that I have downstairs. I was looking for a plant that would, you know, take up a corner of my dining room, that would add some life. It's got more of a tropical vibe to it. It's pretty easy care. Water it when it needs to. It definitely needs to be within 1 to 5 feet from a window. I'm kind of stretching that little suggestion right now, but I can also move it a little closer to the window if need be. But it just is one of those plants that if you have like a corner and it just needs some life, not like a dark corner like, you know, 30 feet from window, but like a corner that needs a little bit of life, get one of these bigger ones because it also acts as like a styling element, and it just looks super cool. So those are all beginner-friendly plants that I have kept alive for a year and moved several different spaces with, and I assure you, these all can stay alive, but if you want them to thrive, of course you're going to need to follow the tips and tricks that I gave you. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you're interested in more plant content, please let me know because this is another little new hobby that I've kind of wandered down, and I'm kind of really loving plants. I've always done a garden outside and I've always done outdoor flowers, but having the plants inside my home has been a new adventure and I'm thoroughly here for it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have nothing short of a fabulous day and we'll chat again soon. Bye guys.